Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling blood sugar. It's something I know a lot of you are really interested in.
Yeah, blood sugar is a pretty important topic for sure.
It is, and we've got some great sources to dig into today. We've got a couple of articles from big diabetes organizations, Diabetes Australia and DiabeFert.
Oh, nice. Those will be good for seeing how folks with diabetes can manage their blood sugar.
Exactly. And then to make sure we're looking at the whole picture, we've got an article from Healthline that talks about blood sugar for everyone, whether they have diabetes or not.
A good mix of perspectives then.
For sure. So our mission today, I'd say it's to really understand the difference between hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia.
Okay, so we'll be looking at those two conditions.
Yeah, we'll figure out what those terms mean, what the symptoms are, what causes them, and maybe even uncover some surprising stuff about how different types of sugar can, affect your blood sugar.
Interesting.
So first things first, what are hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia?
Well, think of it like this. Our bodies need glucose for energy, right?
Right, it's like our fuel.
Exactly. Hypoglycemia is when your blood sugar dips too low,
Too low meaning,
usually below 70 milligrams per deciliter. That's according to our source.
okay, 70 milligdl, got it. And hyperglycemia, that's the opposite then.
Yep, that's when your blood sugar is too high. Typically above 125 milligdl after fasting or over 182 hours after you eat.
So it's all about finding that balance, that sweet spot for your blood sugar. And this can affect anyone, not just people with diabetes, right?
That's right. Anyone can experience these conditions.
Interesting. I did notice that Diabetes Australia specifically mentioned a threshold for hypoglycemia in people with diabetes.
Oh, right. Yeah, they said below 4.0 millimoles per liter, which is pretty close to that general guideline of 70 milligdl.
Okay, so similar but slightly different for folks with diabetes.
Yeah.
So how do we know if our blood sugar's off? What are some of the warning signs?
Well, each condition has its own set of symptoms.
Makes sense.
With hypoglycemia, it's like your body's running low on fuel. You might feel shaky, weak, sweaty, or maybe you're suddenly super hungry and can't concentrate.
Oh, I know that feeling. The hanger is real.
Right. And it can get even more serious, like blurry vision, confusion. And if it's not treated, it can even lead to seizures or fainting.
It's a bit scary.
Yeah.
Diabetes mentioned something interesting about hypoglycemia, too.
Oh, yeah.
They said if you experience it a lot, you might actually become less sensitive to those early warning signs over time.
Wow. So you might not even realize your blood sugar's dropping.
Yeah, a little unnerving, right?
Definitely shows how important it is to really be on top of your blood sugar.
For sure. So what about hyperglycemia then? What are the signs of that?
With hyperglycemia, it's more like your body's got too much fuel but can't use it properly. So you might be really thirsty, have a dry mouth, be going to the bathroom all the time. Headaches and feeling weak are also common.
And if you don't do anything about it, it can actually cause some pretty serious problems down the line.
Yeah, Healthline was pretty clear about that. They said that over time, high blood sugar can actually damage your blood vessels.
Like how?
Well, they can become thicker and stiffer, which makes them more likely to tear or get blocked. That's why it's linked to things like heart disease and kidney disease.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize the connection was that direct.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. And in really extreme cases, you might even experience things like nausea, confusion, shortness of breath.
Oh, wow. Healthline even mentioned something about fruity smelling breath being a sign of something called ketoacidosis.
Right, that's definitely a sign to get medical help immediately.
Got it. So those are the real danger signs.
Yeah.
But let's back up a bit and talk about what causes these blood sugar fluctuations in the first place. What causes hypoglycemia, especially in people who don't have diabetes?
Yeah, you'd think it'd be less common without diabetes, but there are actually a few things that can contribute to low blood sugar. Prolonged fasting or skipping meals is a big one.
That makes sense. You're not giving your body any fuel.
Exactly. And some medications can also lower blood sugar. Things like aspirin, some antibiotics, even birth control pills.
I had no idea birth control could do that.
Yeah, it's surprising how many everyday things can affect blood sugar.
For sure. What else?
Binge drinking can mess with how your liver releases glucose, which can also lead to hypoglycemia.
Binge drinking. Really?
Yeah, it's usually when you drink a lot of alcohol in a short amount of time.
Okay, so it's more about the amount you drink in a certain time frame, not just the type of alcohol.
Exactly.
What about people with diabetes? Is hypoglycemia mostly an insulin thing?
Insulin definitely plays a big role. Both Diabetes Australia and Healthline talked about how taking too much insulin or other diabetes meds can lead to hypoglycemia.
So it's like giving your cells too much glucose at once.
Right, they can only handle so much.
Okay, it's all about balance.
Yeah.
And I imagine things like eating less or exercising more than usual Could also throw things off for someone with diabetes.
Absolutely, those can definitely contribute too.
Makes sense. So let's switch gears and talk about hyperglycemia. What are some of the causes for people without diabetes? I'm guessing it's not just about eating too much sugar, right?
Right, it's a bit more complicated than that. There are actually a few underlying medical conditions that can cause it, things like PCOS or Cushing's syndrome.
Oh, wow. So sometimes it's not even about lifestyle choices. It's a medical condition.
Exactly. Even things like infections and stress hormones can mess with how your body processes insulin, which can lead to temporarily higher blood sugar. But of course, lifestyle factors like obesity and inactivity also play a part.
Right. Those can have a big impact on how our bodies function.
Definitely.
Now, for people with diabetes, is there a difference in what causes hyperglycemia in type 1 and type 2?
Yeah, there is a key difference. With type 1 diabetes, the pancreas doesn't produce any insulin at all, so the body just can't process glucose properly.
So no insulin production whatsoever. What about type 2?
With type 2, the pancreas might not make enough insulin, or the body might become resistant to the insulin it does produce.
So both types lead to hyperglycemia, but for different reasons.
Exactly.
For those with diabetes, what are some of the things that can trigger those blood sugar spikes?
Diabetes highlighted a few common culprits. Not taking your meds as prescribed is a big one. Your diet plays a role too, especially eating too many carbohydrates.
Okay, so diet's important.
And even things like inactivity or infections can throw things off.
So it sounds like maintaining a healthy lifestyle is super important, especially if you have diabetes. But what about preventing these blood sugar swings in the first place? Are there any general strategies that can help?
Definitely. Healthline recommends not skipping meals and eating regularly throughout the day.
Okay, so keeping your body fueled consistently. What else?
Maintaining a healthy weight and getting regular exercise are also key for healthy blood sugar balance.
Those are great starting points. What about preventing hypoglycemia specifically, especially for people with diabetes?
Well, monitoring your blood glucose levels regularly is super important.
Okay, so keeping track.
And it's also crucial to work with your doctor to adjust your insulin or medication dosages as needed.
So regular communication with your doctor is key.
Absolutely. And for those times when your blood sugar drops suddenly, having fast-acting carbs on hand can be a lifesaver. Things like glucose tablets or juice.
Diabetes Australia actually gave some good examples of those fast-acting carbs. They mentioned dextro tablets, glucose powder, even a sports drink like AA High Energy.
Yeah, knowing those specifics can make a big difference.
What about preventing hyperglycemia? Any specific tips for that?
For people with diabetes, taking your medication exactly as directed is crucial.
Okay, so following the doctor's orders.
And working with a doctor or dietitian to create a healthy meal plan is also key.
So it's not just about what you eat, it's about understanding how different foods affect your blood sugar.
Exactly. And if you're active, talk to your doctor about how exercise might affect your medication needs.
All right, so we've got some solid strategies for prevention, but let's talk about those emergency situations. At what point do hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia become really dangerous? What are the red flags?
With hypoglycemia, you want to watch for severe symptoms like confusion, blurry vision, or seizures. Those are signs your brain's not getting enough glucose.
And with hyperglycemia, Diabetes Australia mentioned things like shortness of breath, confusion, coma, nausea, and vomiting as being really serious.
Right, those are signs your body is really struggling to manage blood sugar. And that fruity smelling breath we talked about earlier.
Yeah, the sign of ketoacidosis.
That's another one that needs immediate medical attention.
Okay, those are the danger zones. Now, before we move on, I wanted to bring up this interesting thing I read in Diabetes. They mentioned that fructose, fruit sugar, isn't as effective as glucose for treating hypoglycemia.
Oh, that's right, because fructose takes longer to raise blood sugar levels than glucose does. Their bodies process them differently.
Huh. That's fascinating. So we've covered a lot, but one thing that really struck me is how high blood sugar, even in people without diabetes, can cause damage over time. Healthline explained how prolonged periods of it can damage blood vessels, making them thicker and stiffer.
Right, and that increases the risk of all sorts of complications later on. It really shows how important it is to be mindful of blood sugar, even if you don't have diabetes.
Absolutely. Well, we've laid a good foundation here, but there's so much more to explore.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface.
Exactly. In part 2 of our deep dive, we'll delve into those lifestyle choices and preventative measures in more detail. Stick around, we'll be right back. Welcome back to our deep dive on blood sugar.
Glad to be back.
We've covered a lot of ground already, figuring out what hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia are, talking about what causes those ups and downs in blood sugar.
Yeah, laid a good foundation.
Now I think it's time to really dig into those lifestyle choices that can make a big difference in keeping our blood sugar levels healthy, whether we have diabetes or not.
Right. It's about empowering ourselves to take charge of our health.
Totally. So let's start with what we're putting on our plates. When it comes to food choices, what should we be keeping in mind? How does food affect our blood sugar?
Well, it really boils down to understanding how different types of food break down into glucose and how fast that glucose gets into our bloodstream.
Okay, so different foods act differently.
Exactly, and that's where this concept of the glycemic index, or GI, comes in.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that, but I'm not really sure what it means.
It's basically a ranking system for foods that contain carbohydrates.
Like a rating for how they affect your blood sugar.
Yeah, it measures how quickly they raise your blood sugar level. They're ranked on a scale of 0 to 100, with pure glucose having a GI of 100.
So the higher the number, the faster it spikes your blood sugar.
You got it. High GI foods are like a rocket. They're digested really quickly and cause a rapid spike in blood sugar.
And low GI foods are the opposite.
Yeah, think of them more like a slow-burning fire. They're digested slower, so the blood sugar rise is more gradual.
Okay, so that makes sense. So should we be eating only low GI foods all the time then to keep our blood sugar stable?
Well, not necessarily. It's not just about the GI. It's also about the amount of carbs you're eating.
Oh, right. Portion size matters too.
Exactly. Even a low GI food can cause a big spike if you eat a ton of it.
So it's about balance, like with everything else.
Right. Balance and portion control.
Gotcha. Are there any specific foods that are particularly good for regulating blood sugar?
Oh, yeah. Fiber-rich foods are your best friend here.
Fiber, okay. Why is fiber so good?
Fiber slows down digestion and helps prevent those rapid blood sugar spikes. It kind of acts like a buffer to smooth things out.
So where can we get more fiber?
Lots of places. Whole grains, fruits, veggies, legumes, they're all packed with fiber.
Those are all part of the healthy diet anyway.
Exactly. Lean protein is also great because it doesn't really affect blood sugar levels much. It gives you sustained energy without causing those big swings.
Okay, so fiber and protein are good choices. Earlier we talked about having fast-acting carbs on hand for hypoglycemia. What about for hyperglycemia? Are there foods we should be avoiding in that situation?
If you're dealing with hyperglycemia, you definitely want to steer clear of sugary drinks and processed foods.
Those are tough ones to give up, though.
I know, they're everywhere, but they're basically loaded with simple sugars that will send your blood sugar through the roof. And those refined grains, like white bread and pasta, aren't doing you any favors either. They tend to have a higher GI than whole grains.
So swap the white bread for whole grain and ditch the soda. Got it. Okay, so we've talked about what we eat. What about moving our bodies? How does exercise affect blood sugar?
Exercise is super important for managing blood sugar. It helps your body use glucose more efficiently. But here's the thing. Intense exercise can actually cause a temporary increase in blood sugar.
Wait, so exercise can both lower and raise blood sugar. How does that work?
It depends on the intensity and how your body responds. When you work out, your muscles need fuel, so your body releases stored glucose for energy. That can cause a temporary bump in blood sugar. But over time, regular exercise makes your body more sensitive to insulin, which helps keep your blood sugar stable in the long run.
Okay, so it's finding that balance again. How much exercise is enough to get those benefits, and what type of exercise is best?
The key is to find something you enjoy doing so you'll stick with it. Aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise most days of the week.
So like brisk walking, swimming, cycling.
Yeah, those are all great. Even dancing, anything that gets your heart rate up and your body moving.
And Healthline reminded us that it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor before starting any new exercise routine, especially if you have any health concerns.
Absolutely, they can help you figure out the right intensity and duration for you.
Okay, good advice. So we've covered diet and exercise. Let's talk about another big factor that sometimes gets overlooked: stress. How does stress affect our blood sugar?
Stress. When we're stressed, our bodies go into that fight or flight mode. It releases hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which tell your body to release stored glucose for energy.
So even if the danger is just a deadline or traffic, our body reacts like we're facing a tiger.
Exactly. And that flood of glucose can cause a spike in blood sugar, even if you haven't eaten anything.
So even if we're eating right and exercising, stress can still mess things up.
It's true. But the good news is we can manage stress. It's not about eliminating it entirely, but finding healthy ways to cope.
So what are some good ways to deal with stress and prevent those blood sugar spikes?
Things like yoga and meditation are really helpful. They trigger your body's relaxation response, which helps counteract those stress hormones. Spending time in nature is also a great stress reliever.
Yeah, nature definitely has a calming effect.
And doing things you enjoy, hobbies, or anything that brings you joy can really make a difference for your stress levels and blood sugar.
I remember Diabetes Australia mentioned the importance of mental health for managing diabetes. It seems like having good coping mechanisms and a strong support system can really help.
Absolutely. Managing blood sugar isn't just about physical health, it's about mental and emotional well-being, too.
Okay, we've talked about diet, exercise, stress.
hmm
What about sleep? Does that play a role in blood sugar control?
Sleep is like hitting the reset button for your body. When you don't get enough sleep, your body produces more of that stress hormone cortisol, which we know can raise blood sugar levels.
So not getting enough sleep is like inviting those blood sugar roller coasters.
Pretty much. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night. It's good for your overall health, including your blood sugar.
Makes sense. And what about alcohol? We talked earlier about binge drinking causing hypoglycemia, but what about moderate drinking?
Alcohol is a tricky one. It can interfere with your liver's ability to release glucose, which can lead to hypoglycemia, especially if you're taking insulin or other diabetes medications.
So best to talk to your doctor about how alcohol might affect you specifically.
Yeah, they can give you personalized advice. And Diabetter pointed out that even small amounts of alcohol can impact blood sugar, so moderation is key.
And if you do have a drink, probably a good idea to have a snack or meal with it to prevent your blood sugar from dropping too low.
Definitely a good strategy.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. It's clear that taking care of our blood sugar requires a holistic approach, looking at everything from what we eat and how we move to managing stress and getting enough sleep.
I agree. It's about looking at the whole picture.
It really is. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. It's not about being perfect. It's about making choices that support your overall well-being.
That's what it's all about.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive on blood sugar. We're on the final stretch now.
Yeah, part 3.
We've already talked about what hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia are, those ups and downs in blood sugar. And we've covered some great lifestyle strategies to help keep things balanced.
A lot of good stuff already.
Now, I thought we could get a bit more, technical and talk about some of the ways to actually monitor and manage blood sugar, especially for people with diabetes.
Yeah, let's dive into that. There's some pretty cool tools and tech out there these days.
Okay, so let's start with blood glucose monitoring. What are the different methods people can use, and how do they actually work?
Sure. The most common way is using a blood glucose meter.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. You prick your finger, right?
Right, you get a tiny drop of blood.
Like with those little lancets.
Exactly. Then you put that drop on a test strip, and the meter analyzes it and tells you your blood glucose level at that moment.
It's pretty amazing how that works.
It is. And speaking of blood glucose meters, Diabetter mentioned that people with diabetes should be checking their blood sugar several times a day.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but it's especially important for people using insulin because it helps them make sure their dosages are right and prevent those big swings in blood sugar.
I guess it's like getting constant feedback so you can adjust things as you go.
Exactly. Now, there's also this other technology called continuous glucose monitoring, or CGM.
Oh, yeah, CGM. I've heard about that. Seems like it's getting really popular.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I'm not really sure how it works.
CGM is pretty amazing. It's like having a 204/7 eye on your blood sugar.
Really? 204/7?
Yeah, so you wear this tiny sensor under your skin, usually on your arm or belly.
And it just stays there all the time.
Yep, and it's constantly measuring your interstitial glucose levels.
Interstitial glucose, what's that?
Oh, it's just the glucose that's in the fluid between your cells.
So it's like a sneak peek into your blood sugar without having to constantly prick your finger.
Exactly. And these CGM devices are super high-tech. They take readings every few minutes and send that data wirelessly to a receiver.
So you can see your blood sugar trends in real time.
Yep, you can see the highs, the lows, everything. And that receiver can be your smartphone, a smartwatch, or a separate little device.
That's so cool. I bet that's really helpful for seeing patterns and figuring out how to adjust your diet or exercise or medication.
It is. It's like having a personalized guide for managing your blood sugar.
So cool. Are there any other new technologies being used to manage blood sugar these days?
Yeah, there's actually this really interesting development called the closed-loop insulin pump system.
Okay, what's that?
Sometimes it's called an artificial pancreas.
Whoa, an artificial pancreas. That sounds futuristic.
I know, right? It's basically a combination of a CGM sensor and an insulin pump.
Okay, so the sensor is still measuring your glucose levels.
Yep. And then it sends that info to this control algorithm. The algorithm is like the brains of the operation.
So it's constantly analyzing the data.
Exactly. And based on those readings, it automatically adjusts how much insulin the pump delivers.
Whoa, that's amazing. It's like having a little computer managing your insulin levels for you.
Pretty much. It really does act like an artificial pancreas, keeping your blood sugar within a healthy range.
Right.
And that can be life-changing for people with diabetes because it lowers the risk of both hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia.
Those are some serious advancements. Makes you wonder what else they'll come up with in the future.
For sure. But as cool as the technology is, it's important to remember it's only one piece of the puzzle. Personalized care is just as important.
Right, you need the right guidance to use all that tech effectively.
Absolutely. Personalized care means working with a healthcare team to create a plan that fits your individual needs and goals.
And Diabeater emphasized the importance of having a whole team of experts, doctors, nurses, dietitians, educators.
Like a team in your corner. It's about getting support and advice from different specialists.
And ultimately, it's about empowering you to take control of your own health.
Exactly. Because diabetes is complex and it affects everyone differently. Personalized care is key to managing blood sugar, preventing those long-term complications, and just living a healthy life.
Well, this has been a pretty incredible deep dive. We've learned so much about blood sugar, from the science behind it to the impact of our everyday choices, and even the latest technology for managing it.
Yeah, it's been a good journey.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that taking control of our blood sugar, whether we have diabetes or not, is really an investment in our overall health.
Absolutely. It's something we all need to be aware of.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of the world of blood sugar. We hope you learned some valuable things today and feel empowered to make healthier choices.
And until next time, stay curious and stay well.